Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field. This show is brought to you by Auto Rescue Tools and Isaac Rodell. If you've been looking for a programming laptop, but you're not sure which one to buy or how to set it up, especially if you want to program multiple brands. You know, you've got some domestic vehicles, you've got European vehicles. Can the same software go on the same laptop? What size hard drive do I need? All those questions. Isaac's your guy. He can custom set up programming laptops that are ready to tackle any make or model. I got one of these laptops myself, and I can say that it is outstanding, and it really streamlines the process by having everything you need in one device. So if you're looking for something like that, I highly recommend checking out autorescuetools.com. You'll also find scan tools, diagnostic equipment, key cutting equipment, and much more. Check out the link in the show notes. I highly recommend it. Hey, what's going on, automotive world? Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tipping, and I'll be your host once again for this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining me. This week on the show, I've got Chris Lawson. He's been on the show a few times before. He is with Technician Find. There will be some details in the show notes about that, but you can check out Chris's previous episodes with me. It's always great talks with him. And Dean Sharpe, Sharpe Automotive, is going to be joining us. He's in San Diego. He's a listener of the show, and he is actually connected with Chris via the podcast in order to find some technicians to work in his shop. And Dean is a technician turned shop owner. And our discussion today is kind of going to center around a number of things that if you were a technician and you're looking for a new shop to work at or a shop to work at, what sort of things might you look for? What are the questions that you might ask your potential employer, or the things that you're looking for within the shop, or what they can provide to you? Or the other thing is, if you are a shop owner and you are looking to hire automotive technicians, you're looking for top talent, what are some of the sort of things that you could offer, do, or change about your business to make it as attractive as possible for potential candidates, and again, that top talent that you're looking for? So anyways, with that out of the way, you're gonna like this episode, so let's jump right in. All right. Good evening, gentlemen. We got Chris and Dean here tonight. How we doing, Dean?
Hey, doing good, Sean. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks for spending the time coming on. Appreciate it. Good to see everybody tonight.
Good to be here.
Yeah. Chris, it's how long has it been since our last episode we had?
It was over a year. I was just
wow.
looking at it. Yeah, it's been a while. But, yeah, we had a great talk, and then, life got in the way, as it usually does.
Yeah, right. Freaking time flies. That's for sure.
Yeah.
How's business for you? What have you been up to in the last year?
Business is going really well. I've added a couple of employees on, and we're helping a lot of shops all across the United States, and I'm doing some consulting now. And we're doing a lot more training. So a big part of it, which everybody's getting into right now, is AI, right? So I'm in the process of writing a lot of GPTs for my clients to help them hire faster and do things around the shop so they can leverage AI and ChatGPT and Claude and all that good stuff. So that's keeping us all really busy.
Cool. Yeah, that stuff's pretty cool. We've been messing around with that quite a bit. Figuring out where it works, where it doesn't, and the best use cases. And there's a few things. It's really turning a dial. It is really coll. So yeah,
it really is. It can't turn wrenches yet, but so we're safe for now. You really have to learn how to leverage it. We actually did something really interesting. We had a a shop visit a few months back, and one of the things that we did is we recorded the shop visit, and then we ran that through AI to create a summary. And the shop owner actually used it with, as a training tool with his staff based upon the outcome. We had 10 shop owners there, and they all gave their feedback and input, and his staff was really good. They ended up interviewing the technicians and the service advisors and everybody, and they all got a 360-degree view of the shop from all the employees' standpoint, and it was really helpful for everybody that came there. So, yeah, there's lots of different ways that you can use AI in the process.
Yeah. I've been pretty interested in it. Like from day one, I was like, this is so cool. How can I, make the most of it? And I had a lot of like, ideas of like, oh, it could do this for me in diagnostics or this or that. And I didn't see the, like, what the number one use would be, at least, at this point. But we use it for like summarizing, invoice documentation, right? So like I just diagnose the car and I do a talk to text on my phone, and then I have it summarize that into like a well written, grammatically correct, like really nice summary that I just put into the invoice.
Yeah.
And it's a fraction of the time that I would spend writing it myself, and 4 times as good as far as the legibility of it and how it's articulated. And that has been so huge to like build the value in our invoices to show what we've done. And then speeding things up at the same time. So like that's a no brainer.
So you're
That's a great use case.
physically sending that summarization to your client as a on your invoice, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And it regurgitates what you tell it, and it puts it in better platform or better grammar.
Exactly. I created some instructions for it to summarize my, blurb about what I've done, and I can throw as much detail as I want at it. And right after I'm done with the car is like perfect time. Like I had 5.4 volts on this wire. It should have been 8. And then we tested this, and then we found that this was the thing. And we advised the customer to do this thing. And even if I'm, the ums and the buts and the likes are in there, takes all that out of there, and then puts it with bullet points, bold font in certain points. And I had to tweak with, like you say, you're writing GPTs for it, you're giving it specific instructions, but once you kind of massage out the details and get it working right, you still check it when you're done to make sure that it's what you would want the customer to see. But man, now we got it dialed, like outstanding tool.
Yeah. That's key, to check the output, especially when you're into technical things. I mean, it just made stuff up, and you got to be careful about that.
Yes, yeah, for sure. It's not a set it and forget it. It's let's do this. Okay, read over it. Like, yep, that looks good. Sometimes I'll clear some stuff out. Sometimes I'll add a couple things. But as a whole, it's such an enormous time saver. Plus
Absolutely.
Quality booster, right? You don't find those things often where you save time and have a better output at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that it's interesting on that, because the topic of what we're discussing today is our industry and maybe bringing better light to it, and independent versus dealership, and just that point right there, having a customer read over their invoice that has been methodically thought through and written back like a professor of English might do for you, I think is paramount versus,
yes,
even a service writer summarizing or changing some of the words up a little bit from what the tech writes down. And then the customer sees that. Even that can be a little rough sometimes, or misspelled.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many times I've gone over an invoice before it gets sent to a customer. I'm like, geez, I'm glad I caught that, because we look like a bunch of, what.
Yep.
And I haven't even thought about using AI like that, and definitely something I'll be researching.
Well, for me personally, the talk to text is the biggest part of that game changer, because I'm a relatively slow typer in the grand scheme of things. not the slowest typer. I can use more than two fingers, but I'm not going to win any races. And, you know, my girlfriend makes fun of me for how slow I type, but I can talk pretty fast. And like we use Chat GPT, I'm sure there's other options out there, but the
Hmm.
dictation function of it is
Yeah.
outstanding.
Yeah,
Like
it's really good.
it will cut out my ums and buts and likes and uhs. Like it just takes it out of it and then figures out the rest of it. It's
Hmm.
yeah, it really impressive.
Yeah, very cool.
And there's 100 other uses. We could make this an AI podcast, but that's probably not the
Yeah.
idea for tonight. So, yeah. So, Chris, you reached out to me a little while ago and introduced me to Dean, who tells me is the listener of the show, which I appreciate. But Dean, you got a shop out near Chris, and yeah, I'd like to hear your story because I don't know much about you beyond what I saw in the email.
Yeah, yeah. We are in San Diego, California. So the southernmost part there. We're only less than 20 or 30 miles from the Mexico border. So we have outstanding Mexican food here. Whenever I travel, that's the biggest thing I realize is that not a lot of other places have great carne asada. But yeah, I got my start in the industry in the 90s, right out of high school. Went from auto shop in high school and then took my first job at a dealership washing cars. I was just a, lot porter, lot attendant, as they would call it. And I didn't have any interest in going to college. I did great in school. I was a great student, did sports and all that typical stuff, but I was done with it after high school and I didn't. Other friends went to community college or four-year universities. A couple of them went to tech schools. And I just kind of fell into a position, a full-time position at a big dealership. Man, how many techs were there? It was a GM dealership, and there was about 40 mechanics. It was huge, and then plus body shop too. But kind of had my eyes wide open and looked around and saw that these middle-aged guys, can make a decent living being mechanics, and I could see that they were the top tier of the industry probably because you could see your independent shops, the smaller ones that maybe didn't look as nice or maybe they weren't fixing the cars as great. I could tell these guys were squared away. They had great training and they had the tooling and the infrastructure to really support their skills. And that kind of just locked me in and solidified my choice to stick with that. And I 28 years later, climbed the ranks. Here I am, owning a shop right now. So to give you a quick, journey, spent a couple years just washing cars, cleaning trash cans, watching guys, then moved to apprenticeship, did training through GM. They sent me to schools throughout the years. Spent about 7 years at a dealership. Ended up being flat rate tech at that point, tune-up, drivability type of guy. And then kind of got a little bit bored of the same stuff over and over. I had a coworker who started his own shop, who eventually recruited me to come out and work with him. And I ended up being there for about 15 years. And that was a great move. That was really the move that kind of opened my eyes to be, to see what I would call like a true mechanic, someone who works on all things. It could
Sure.
be a Honda to a Porsche to a. I have friends that stay in the dealership that don't know how to fix their lawnmower, because it's not just the typical thing they see all the time, right?
Uh-huh.
So I really, my brain absorbed like a sponge all the aspects of cars. I really caught on to diagnostics, trying to be a little bit smarter, work smarter, not harder. Although I didn't, sway away from the big heavy line jobs. Yeah, a little bit of anything and everything is what we took on. I was a Cadillac specialist because I came from a GM store. The place was called the Caddy Shack. A strange name, but it fit. But so we did a lot of GM, but we did everything. A ton of diesel. I really jumped in the diesel world in about 2010 to 2015, right in there. Did a ton of diesel work. And then I wanted to move up and up and up. I've always kind of never been happy just idle. Kind of felt like I was spinning my wheels a bit. I'd requested to, get more of an opportunity to be a foreman or a manager, run the shop, even though I kind of already was when the owner was gone. And that opportunity never happened. So in about 2016, I was like, hey, talking with my wife, we had 2 young girls at the time. And I said, let's go. I want to do this. And started the shop from scratch. It was just me and my wife the first year.
Okay.
Like with a lot of, it's a similar story to a lot of owners. I don't know anyone who went in and bought a shop for, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I hear about them all the time, but I don't know anyone personally. It's usually they start from scratch. At least those are the circle I'm in. And man, it was some hard work. I definitely had a lot of nights on the couch sleeping at the shop just because I would work so late, wake up so early. Kids were in bed by then, and what was the point of going home? Just returning back here. But made it work and got to a point where we could hire, and I hired. Went from just me to 3 techs to 5 to 7 to service writers to foremans. Now there's about 12 of us here now, and I'm in a position where I don't have to work on cars now. I work on the guys and the customers, and I'm quite happy with that. I'm kind of taking on a new role. Like I said, I've never been happy just being idle, and I've always wanted more. I felt like there was more for me to do, except for what my daily tasks were. So, and then kind of within that, really seeing from a teenager when I started growing through the industry, growing through generations of cars, fixing these cars really well, being kind of on the side of drivability, electrical diagnostics, and seeing technology advance, not seeing the industry and how we're held really go with that linear. And now being a shop owner, seeing some of the pitfalls with that, and some of the issues with hiring qualified techs, and some of that's our own fault with the not giving these young guys an opportunity. But yeah, I mean that's kind of my story. I'm happy as heck right now.
Okay, so more curiosity for me as a growing business owner, and I'm still trying to figure all this stuff out. The transition from fixing cars to not fixing cars.
Yeah.
How long has that been, and how was that transition for you? Like, did you struggle with it? Was it easy? Is it like a really good decision now that you're on the other side of it? Because I'm in that area, and I'm still majority working on cars, but I'm trying to like set a day for myself once a week. And it doesn't always work, but I'm trying to like, hey, this is Sean's admin day. I'm going to work on the business, and I'm not going to be out in the field fixing cars. But it's tough. It's a struggle.
Yeah. So I knew that I'm what am I, 47 now? I knew when I was rounding the corner of 40 that I didn't want to be working on cars, and I might be unique in that. Now, my working on cars, I think, is a little bit different than yours, Sean. I'm sure you get in there, and there's hot days and cold days that you're like, man, this labor is not that fun. But I was pretty aggressive, and like I'd sacrifice my body a lot in the labor.
Yeah, I'm not lifting trannies up or anything like that. So yeah.
So I kind of knew that the road where I wanted to go involved letting go of the car. And that transition, because we are technicians, not just in the profession of what we are technicians in our mind. We try to fix things that are right in front of our faces. And um, that is a difficult thing to let go of and transition out of. It was through a lot of research and reading, and I by no means have a business degree. I think I'm successful at it, but for whatever reasons, it's not from schooling or no one telling me how to run a business. So it was a year or two of trial and error, uh, halfway in, halfway out. And the best thing I ever did was I hired a foreman. He's been with us for 3 years now. You know, and what that allowed me to do was, well, prior to that, of course, if I had a couple of guys with me, I could oversee them and fix a few cars in the meantime, especially the difficult ones. But I was always missing something in the front office. There was always something I had to deal with, a fire to put out,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like I wasn't doing justice in the back 100%. I wasn't doing justice in the front. So hiring a foreman, an ATAC, someone who's well experienced, to also not have to produce hours, but is just there to oversee everything, was the best thing I ever did. And he's a great guy. He's been with me at the independent shop before I started this. He's a godsend. Really, he's a great person. And without his ability to help me out, I don't think I would have grown the percentage I have in the last probably 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And now some of the guys that have known me for a long time make fun of me because I wear a button-up shirt and blue jeans and not the tech shirt anymore. They think I'm all high and mighty, but it's just a choice.
Yep.
You got to make choices.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one thing that's definitely clear to me is like somebody's got to be leading the ship. And if you if you're down rowing the boat, that makes it a lot tougher to be that leader. And I'm, again, I'm in that position where I'm trying to do both, and I'm making it work. But especially as the company grows, more and more employees and more fires, like you mentioned, like you got to have somebody with some clear vision that can guide everything and be on top of everything and not have their, be elbow deep in some CAN network problem.
Yeah, I remember listening to one of your episodes a while back, and you were talking about how much time you spent on the phone at the client's shop.
Yeah, right.
You hadn't even touched the car yet. You were there for 45 minutes. You're probably sitting in the driver's seat, the scam's on your lap, but on your phone.
Yep. Oh, 100%. Yeah. I hired, somebody to do phones for me, and like you're saying, that was just best decision I've made thus far, is to get somebody to do that. So, yeah, no, it's cool to hear. I like hearing from people that are different stages, ahead of me, as far as what they've done with the business. It's good to see, to like just sort of gauge where I'm at and, what's possible, what's the right next move, what should I be looking for, and that sort of stuff. Because it's so easy just to keep going with the day to day and the grind and sticking with it. And there's a million cars to fix, and I got to fix them all. And how am I going to get them all fixed? But yeah, like you got to step back and look at the big picture.
It's also like what your goal is. You need to have a clear goal of where do you see yourself in 5 years. Sure. And maybe that's just maybe it's your 2 or 3 or 4 guys that you have, and that's it. And you've got a few. What do you get? Transit vans, older ones, and there's just those running around, and that's what it is. And you're comfortable with that. That's perfectly fine. I can tell you that I didn't envision having 12 on my payroll 4 years ago, but I also knew that I didn't want to be the guy in the back with a phone on his shoulder, his ear, wrenching on a car at the same time, putting out fires at the same time. So it naturally kind of went to more guys, more employees, more manpower. I think you need a kind of a clear plan of what your expectations are in 5 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it might be.
Sure. Well, I mean, yeah, that's the entrepreneur story. And even outside of automotive, like, you are the person doing the work, and then you decide, well, I want to go do this on my own. And then you get somebody to help you, and then you get a few more people to help you. And like you say, there's not, at least in, like you say, our circles, not a lot of people are just coming in and dropping $1 million to buy a
Right.
business that's already, is operational. Like the story we hear over and over and over again is people building that from the ground up, using their technical skills, and then transferring that and picking up the business, leadership skills that they need. But take some time, take some trial and error, and well, yeah, there's plenty of air in there. So
Right.
That's the growth process.
yep. Yeah, you're not gonna forget those lessons, that stuff you screw up or you don't do right. So
No, and I got to tell you, I know a couple of owners that did step in and purchase an existing already running shop, and
okay.
they have a whole different set of problems. The problems they have, since they didn't come up and they don't understand being, a technician or the work that's getting done. Sometimes the techs pull the wool over their eyes, and it can be challenging for them because they don't know how long it takes to fix a particular problem. They don't know a lot of these things. And so they have a whole different learning curve that they have to go through in order to figure these things out. So it's interesting hearing from both perspectives. But I'll tell you, the other thing is, and this is something that really impressed me about Dean when I worked with Dean, was it's a really good story to be able to tell that the shop owner came up as a tech and knows how to remove the obstacles for you. And that's one of the biggest complaints that I hear when I'm talking to technicians is, what, the shop foreman is an idiot or my boss is an idiot. They've never wrenched on a car. They don't know what's going on. And I try to tell them what's going on and they just don't understand. So it's really good to be able to, that's a great story to be able to tell is, hey, look, the owner understands what you've been through. They can remove obstacles and they've set the shop up so that it works for technicians. And that's a great story to be able to tell.
Yeah, I agree. And I've heard the story time and time again of great techs do not make great owners. And there's probably some truth to that for sure. But if you're not from the industry and you came up with a degree in business and you have a great model and you want to buy a shop, by all means, there's some Zoom meetings I'll see, and there'll be 40 or so shop owners on there, and a good amount of them, maybe half or a bit less than half, will not have any experience in the industry. But you know what? Those ones are usually successful because they implement someone in a position, they put someone in a spot where they do have experience and they do remove those obstacles from the front office, back shop, whatever it may be. And that's why it works. And they can kind of be a little bit standoff, like, hey, only check in once a day or quarterly, weekly, whatever it might be, because they don't have experience, but the people that they hire and put in positions to run the shop do have experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like the E-Myth. If you've read the E-Myth. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what we talked about. It's the entrepreneur that had or the technician that had the entrepreneurial seizure. He said, you'd almost be better sometimes running a business if you'd never done the work before. And it was funny because when I first read that book, it was before I got into this industry. And I thought, oh, yeah, this makes so much sense. And it's funny, after I got in this industry, I said, well, I can see the flip side of that too. But it's different mentalities, and you have to make that shift. It's all growth because you're really going from the technician idea into the owner idea, and it's a different way of thinking. And some folks can't make that shift. I've worked with shop owners that they've been on the counter for 30 years, and they can't quite make that shift. They're making a good living and they're doing a lot of everything that needs to be done, but they just can't get that shift. And I had one shop owner tell me one time, he said, you can't run your business from a creeper. And, I've always remembered that because it really is a mental shift that you've got to turn to make that transition.
Yeah. But I do think there is some serious value in understanding what it is like to be on that creeper. When you're asking people to do stuff as part of their job, I think at the very least, like you should have done it. You should have an understanding of like what it's like. And again, because I'm still in that role where I'm like out there doing it, I'm like, oh, this sucks. This particular job is really crappy, and I hate my life right now. And so I'm gonna keep that in mind when I'm asking my employee to go do the same thing, or maybe I won't ask them to go do that because I'm like, this is not something. This is not going to make him happy. This is going to piss him off. Okay, let's figure out a different way to do things or a different approach to this. And sometimes you don't know that until you go through it yourself. So I get it. Like I can't be out there in the field every single day forever, but there's an advantage to it.
I think so.
Yeah, I've never asked my guys to do something that I haven't done myself, dozens and dozens of times, or even in my blue jeans and button-up shirt wouldn't do today.
Yeah.
Whether that's an oil change on some medium-duty truck out on the flat parking lot, or pulling a tranny, or giving a customer a ride home, and have a awkward conversation with someone, because you're forced to.
Yep. So, Dean, as you were growing, how did you find these technicians? Is that partly with your relationship with Chris, or like how did that happen that you find 12 guys? Because
Sure.
that's not an easy task nowadays, I don't think.
No, it's not, and it doesn't happen overnight. The first guy that came on board with us, he's still here today, and that was a great meeting of us, and that was through referral. So I would say, you do like your platforms, Indeed and Craigslist and Facebook and things like that. But I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just writing some ads and putting them out there, talking to the tool guy, asking to send anyone my way that might be interested. Good guys, of course. So it was just organically. The first core of wave of guys coming my way was mainly through referrals, right? And I was comfortable with that, and that worked. As our volume grew, our load grew, I had to branch out and then interview someone I didn't know, which that's where the Craigslist and the Indeed came from. And man, that was tough. I probably went through 20 to 30 interviews over the course of 3 months or so. And, at the time I was looking for A-Tech, B-Tech. And, man, I found a couple of them. But out of the 30 or so, most of them are, no disrespect to them if they're listening, but I would ask them like, hey, what's your experience? And it was either, well, my uncle owned a shop, or I've been working on my cars since I was a kid. Then my next question is usually like, what does your toolbox look like? Give me a description of your tool situation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've got, the 200 Husky set from Sears or from Home Depot. And I just cringe. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, where's myself 15, 20 years ago? Where's that guy? Well, I'll tell you where he's at. He's happy at a shop. He's being taken care of, and he's not looking. He's not on Indeed. He's not on Craigslist. He's not, that's where referrals kind of come in, because maybe someone they know can say, hey, dangle a carrot, be like, hey, I heard this shop over here is hiring. When you were over at my house for barbecue last week, you were telling me how you're not really happy at your shop. Well, I heard, Dean's hiring over there. Why don't you go check him out?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll fast forward a little bit. I had to make some changes in the shop at the end of last year, 2024. And so I had to replace my A-Tech, my flat rate guy, my main guy. And that's when I kind of was interviewing at that time, and just not finding. I settled for something, didn't work out, settled for another thing, didn't work out. And I heard your podcast, and I heard Chris come on, and I'm like, ding, 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 ding. This is exactly what I'm looking for, and Chris was able to write the ad and put it out there and do, through his avenues. Within 2 weeks, I had 3 ATECs come my way, sat down, interviewed.
Nice.
They all wanted the position. Um, and we're right in the middle right now of hiring one of those on. So
Oh,
that's
that's
how I
awesome.
met Chris, and that's how I'm real optimistic right now about our future, about finding that talent.
Okay. Oh, that's really cool. I'm happy about the connection. That's fantastic. Okay, so this is a good transition. Chris, you had sent some questions over beforehand, and one of them centered around what you can look for in a shop if you're interviewing as a technician. So to the business side of things, Dean, like as you're interviewing these people, like what are obviously you're looking for things in them, right? And that's a separate discussion. But as far as what you're presenting to them, for their employment, for the place they're going to work, what are you considering and what do you want to um, present to them? I mean, obviously, you're just showing your business. I don't think it's right to like fluff it up into something it's not. But when you're presenting it to you, like, what is your mindset there, and how are you going to put your best foot forward?
Yeah, it's not really an easy answer because it's something that happens in person. Really, first of all, when they walk through the door, they see a clean uh, greeting room, waiting room, foyer. That you're not bombarded by tripping over transmissions and red rags. So it
Parts
starts.
that have been sitting there for 8 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first impressions are huge. Uh, but then, as they can kind of get the gist of the shop within, 20 seconds or a minute, sit down, greet them. And yeah, obviously I'm super interested. I'm interviewing them, but just the
Mm-hmm.
same, I know they're interviewing me, because if this is a talented individual that wants to possibly leave likely a secure position, um, I mean, an ATEC in Southern California is making 100 grand plus, and uh, that's not an easy thing to leave. So usually they're
Yep.
leaving because of culture of shop, not because of looking to go higher, or to growth, or within the company to become an owner, obviously, or a foreman. They're still wanting to be a tech. Um, so I can tell them, like, hey, look, I'm the owner, I'm the decision maker. I'm here every day. I'm on site. My door's open. I encourage feedback from the techs. Like, what are your obstacles? What do you look for to be productive? I go over the front office with them, the relationship from the service writers to the foreman, which is a liaison of the tech. You know, and then really what I try to hit on most is, I'm not a believer in flat rate. I spent my whole career on flat rate. I do believe that it has its benefits, but for someone who is senior, 10, 15, 20 years experience at ATEC, and who just kind of I want them to use that experience and that knowledge without the push and killing themselves physically to have to make that paycheck. I'd rather just pay them that paycheck on an hourly basis and sit back and do your work. Like, you know how to fix cars, diagnose cars real well, repair cars, talk to customers, talk to foremen, work well with your coworkers, do all that without the pressure of having to make hours. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to get paid whether we're busy or slow. You're going to get paid well with your qualifications and your experience. Uh, there's no reason why you need to kill yourself anymore. I want you to kind of put it on cruise control, let the shop soak up your benefits of your knowledge, and everyone goes forward with the same mindset, of we're all here together. We're obviously here to make money, but it doesn't need to be a grind. So I really think that is what I key in on.
Hey,
Yeah.
can I say something about that? I wanted to just point something out for your listeners. one of the things I always tell any technician that I'm talking to, and I've talked to hundreds now, and I always say, one of the things you really want to find out when you get on the phone is you want to find out if the shop owner or your GM or whoever's really going to be your direct report and your boss, if they really care about your life inside and outside of the shop. And have they thought through the process? Have they thought through how they remove obstacles for you? Have they thought through the process of, I mean, Dean just shared a remarkable example. He thought through the process of, is flat rate fair for my employees? Is that really what I want them to be worried about when they come to work every day? And I can tell you, I've been doing this for 7 years now, I can tell you when the spike in the applications come through.
This episode is brought to you by L1 Automotive Training and Keith Perkins. If you're looking for education on module programming, J2534, EEPROM work, key and immobilizer, electrical diagnostics, or drivability diagnostics, Keith has a website, l1training.com, that's got over 60 hours of training videos on all those subjects and more. When I first started out doing mobile, I utilized Keith's videos on module programming in J2534 in order to get my head wrapped around what I would need for the tooling, the computers, the software setups, what kind of obstacles I would be up against when I'm out there programming modules on cars. And it was a huge benefit to me. And I continue to use the training videos that he has on his website. So I strongly recommend checking out l1training.com. The link is in the show notes.
Applications come through. The application spiked on Friday afternoon, right when people are getting off work, and the application spike on Sunday afternoon, right when they're getting ready. They got that pit in their stomach because they got to go back to that shop they hate on Monday morning. So that's one of the things you want to really figure out in that interview is, hey, do these people, have they thought through what it's like to be me? Have they thought through my position? And I always tell shop owners, hey, just assume that a technician that's talking to you is talking to 2 other shops. Just assume that. Mm-hmm. And I would tell technicians, hey, just ask having that interview, take that mentality as well and say, look, here's the thing, this is what I want to accomplish in my career. This is what I want to accomplish in my life. How is coming with you going to help me to do that? I mean, are you willing to sit down with me and put together a growth plan? Are there advancement opportunities here? I mean, get really clear on what you're looking at. And I can tell you, folks like Dean and a lot of other shops that I work with that hire very quickly, they do that when they sit down with their prospective employees. They say, hey, look, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to do in your career? And I always tell technicians, hey, ask the shop owner, what are they going to do in 5 years? What's their 5-year plan? And if the 5-year plan aligns with what you want to do, if they're going to open up new locations or if they're going to expand and you want expansion opportunities, hey, that's great. It's a good fit. Now you're aligned.
Mm-hmm. Or do they have a 5-year plan at all?
That's a big one. That's a really big one.
Those are very good questions to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dean brought up another really interesting point too, and everybody knows this. I mean, it's pretty intuitive. Is when you walk in, you just look around and you see what's there. We had one shop that we were running ads for a while, and they'd get a bunch of applications and they never made a hire. And I said, what the heck is going on? So I just went in and I looked through all of the applications. I was like, wow, these are really experienced technicians. And the shop owner told me, oh, it's not working out. None of them are any good. I was like, you know what? These guys look good. So I just randomly called 2 of them that looked like they're really qualified. They're really qualified ATECs, a lot of experience, certifications, everything. And so I called them. The first guy says, yeah, there's no way I'd work at that shop. And I said, why? And he said, I walked in and, immediately I went into his office and he didn't even put down his phone. He was talking to somebody else. And then he kind of put the phone on his shoulder, and then he yelled at somebody out in the shop. And then he finally hung up, and then he was talking to me, but he was distracted. He said there were stray cats walking through the service bays. He's like, the place was a mess. You know, there's stuff hanging down that you can run into, bump your head on, and stuff on the floor and everything. And I was like, these are just, this is table stakes. These are the basic things. And when you get in there and you sit down with somebody like that, it's like, well, how's he going to treat his employees, So, those are obvious things, but I mean, that's the kind of stuff I've seen,
There's a shop that I go to down in Minneapolis that they have a number of cats. They're shop cats. And I was talking to the owner, and he's like, we were paying thousands of dollars for this exterminator to come and take care of our mouse problem. They have mice all over the place, and they would just keep coming back. We got these 3 cats. There's no more mice, so we let them live here.
Problem solved.
So there's all kinds of different shops out there, definitely, and maybe you like cats, maybe you don't, but I heard something from somebody of like, go take your car in to get service, like go get an oil change somewhere. If you're thinking about working there, like don't even say you're interviewing as a tech, just bring your car in and see what is the experience like, right? And they're going to be presenting as like a customer, but you get to see the things and you understand, like maybe ask to go talk to the technician back there and see like, what's the vibe like, how do things run, what does the shop look like? It's not something you'd have to do, but if you're really curious about a place, there's different ways to go about it. But I do have the advantage of I go shop to shop throughout the day, and I get to see a lot of different places and the different ways things are run, the management styles, the general attitude of the employees at the shops, the cleanliness. That's a big one. It's not always 100% the factor. There are some really good shops that, man, they're not exactly as clean as I would like my place. But it is a good indicator of like what direction. You don't see too many like really clean shops that aren't well run. You know what I mean? They're probably out there too, maybe some of the chains. But if you go in, you can get a vibe of the place pretty good. If you talk to some of the technicians, you look at the back shop. There's things you can pick up on if you've been in this industry for a while.
Yeah,
sure.
I would really recommend like a new hire, if you're really wanting to size up the shop you're going to potentially work at, is do everything you can to go walk through the back in the middle of the day. And that creates, its own kind of issues because maybe not all the guys know that someone's for hire. But I always try to do 2 interviews at least, do a sit down first and kind of get to know each other, get your qualifications, get all your basics. And then, I might have a few to review and then call back a couple of those and have them come back in the middle of the day and be like, hey, this is the real world. This is what we look like. And, nothing's ever perfect. Like, look right over there, Bob just spilled a big old oil mess on the ground. And, but this is the real world. This is what this shop looks like right now. And I think that's important because you can maybe gloss it over at 6:30 at night after everyone's gone home and maybe not be true to the applicant about what the day-to-day life looks like at the shop. So I think that's important for someone going in for interviews to try to get that owner to show you the shop in the middle of the day, see how busy it is or slow it is. It tells a lot.
What are you guys' thoughts on incentive, like bonuses? Like you were talking about flat rate, and I agree. What are the most articulated points on flat rate I ever heard? I didn't come up with this, but that it is a management system for people who are poor managers or don't want to manage their shop, right? That's what flat rate does, is it manages the employees for you because they're going to try to get their hours. But I don't think that you should have to get to your guaranteed pay by billing out hours. I think if you're there for 40 hours, you should get paid for 40 hours. And then on top of that, though, I think a little incentive is a good thing. and maybe this just comes from my personality of like, I was a hustler and I wanted to make as much money as I could while I was there and crank out as many cars as I could. So what are you guys' thoughts on incentive for employees as far as monetary value, or does that not matter as much in today's world? I don't know. What do you guys see?
Uh, yeah, in my point of view, like I said before, I was flat rate for my whole career, and uh, I loved that when it was busy, and when it got slow, and I was sitting on my stool
Mm-hmm.
at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I did not put me in a good mental state, and I'm kind of looking at the owner whose responsibility is to fill the days. And I'm like, hey, dude, what's going on, man? How come we don't have any work?
Yeah.
Um,
You couldn't sell me those ball joints? Come on, they were loose as hell.
now, I was pretty, even killed in the head where I saved for rainy days, and probably more than the next guy. So I always knew that the year is an average. Your income in the year is an average of all the 52 weeks, and to not get been out of shape if it's slow. But I don't believe in not paying my guys. If they're here for 40, I'm going to pay you exactly what we agreed on.
Yep.
Um, uh, my past history won't show the incentive programs that I'm implementing now, but I do believe that a good hourly wage that's agreed on, when you first start, is where the base should be. And then, you got ASE certifications, right? So I tell my guys 50 cents for every ASE. There's 8 basic ones, and then you got L1, L2, and so on. Those are $2 each, right? So right there, you get money on the table, $10 plus, per hour. Then you've got you can do. We're going to do the revenue. So total revenue of the shop is a tier. If the shop gets a certain amount, boom, a bonus for everyone. And then if you individually um, can get over your 40 hours to be 100% efficient, then boom, there's an individual bonus. Okay, and these things aren't going to make or break your bank. It's not going to allow you to take your family on a vacation to France, but a few $100 every week or so, that can add up for sure. And it's just an
Mm-hmm.
incentive. It's like, hey, the shop is behind you. Like, hey, you perform, above and beyond what we agreed. Then here you go. Thank you for that. Here you go. Let's do the next one. But by no means, if it's slow, are you going to have less of a paycheck. Now, let me caveat that I will give the option to the guys if it is slow, like, hey, do you have any errands to do? Would you rather not be here? Um, and some people say, no, I really need this check, this one. Okay, no problem. Stay here and clean the shop. Bring in that project car in the corner. Because, when you bring in a project car, you're going to get busy right away. Or, hey, do you have any ideas to reorganize the shop? We could do that right now when it's slow. Or sometimes one of the guys will have like an errand to do and be like, hey, I could go knock off 5 things on my list right now if you don't mind me not being here, boss. I'm like, by all means, go ahead. No clock out, and they won't get paid for that, but that's on their choice.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said it there towards the beginning of how your mindset was as a technician of like, hey, there's a little bit of feast and famine throughout the year. There are ebbs and flows to the year that we've all experienced in this industry. And you plan for that. And I think that transfers over as a business owner to be able to just pay everybody for the time that they're there. You're getting paid for your 40 weeks. And yeah, February's going to be a little slow, but we've compensated for that as a business, so I can still pay you. Like, that's how it should be, in my opinion, is the ebbs and flow of the business shouldn't dictate your pay.
Yeah.
We as business owners should accommodate for that 100%. Now, yeah, I have an incentive plan for us too, and it's based off of, like you say, the revenue of the business as a whole. So you're getting paid your agreed amount, but if we all hit this goal, we all do well. And that's just a little bit extra on top of there that helps, kind of motivate everybody to
Like, hey, if we get this, then it's that extra per month, and definitely helps everybody. It's a win, but they don't have to sweat like, am I going to be able to pay my bills? And that's definitely the dumb part about flat rate is like, because I was at Firestone forever, and you were scheduled for 45 a week, but you were only guaranteed 30. And I was like, what a freaking jip if you're sitting there because you had to be there for your 45 to get your 30. Even if you weren't doing jack squat, you had to sit in that stupid store for 45 hours a week. So there weren't too many weeks like that. There's always something to do, but yeah, it was frustrating.
Well, that's, the industry too, like that flat rate, that's kind of sour because that plays to favoritisms. Shoot, I remember in the dealership days, with 40 mechanics, you could imagine there'd be 5 or 6, teachers' pets that would be, drinking
It's
coffee
a game.
around the dispatch office,
It's a game, and I played it. I tried to. How can I buy lunch for that service advisor a couple times a week so he gives me tickets? Okay, let's do it. Hey, come on, man. I'll get you a burger, whatever.
That's the only reason I eventually left was the bureaucracy of a dealership, and I had 3 bosses, more than that, including the owners. You got a parts manager, a service manager. You got a dispatcher who was kind of in control of the techs. You got the owner. There was multiple owners. And that's definitely a goal of mine, to not have the red tape, open door policy. If you got some issues, please come and talk to me. My door is always open, literally physically open. I almost never shut that thing.
Yeah. What I've really seen is that whatever it is, it's got to be transparent. And that's the biggest part about it. And the shops I've seen that are really successful with whatever pay plan they offer are just transparent about it. They show you, here, look, if this is the number you want to get to, this is your combination of production and efficiency that you've got to hit in order to make those numbers. And it's all laid out and it's very transparent. That being said, I've also seen shops that want to go to flat rate, and it becomes a fiasco because they're not set up to be flat rate shops. They don't keep the shop busy with car count. The dispatching isn't right. The techs have to order their own parts, things like that slow them down a lot and make it really difficult. So, I think that the hybrid pay plan with a base plus, incentives, that seems to work out really well. And then there's team-based incentives and bonuses, and that seems to keep everybody on the same page. And then you're not suffering as much with that feast or famine. That's what I've seen.
How about career path? Because that's typically something that there really isn't much for a technician. Maybe a foreman position, but a lot of times it's just, hey, you're going to be a service writer once you can't wrench anymore. Or maybe you take a path like Dean and you start your own shop, right? You get your own business. But I mean, what does career path look like today for technicians, or what could it look like to attract more technicians? So like that piece of it, that, hey, you have this path where, yes, I want you fixing cars right now, but in 5 years, this could be your role. Dean, what does that look like for you, or Chris, what does it look like out there for, the successful shops that you work with?
Yeah. So, it's kind of, honestly, it's limited. I won't sugarcoat it, right? You're a general service tech, and then you're a stand on your own 2 feet tech for the majority of your career. And from there you got foreman, supervisor, manager, service writer, owner. In that kind of webs out in its own little avenues from that point. There's nowadays, like, professional motorsports is a big one, especially here in California. We have a ton of motorsports, that can kind of branch out into something with that. But I would say the top echelon of where you could go would be shop owner. If that's what your mindset is, that's the top, right? And then from that, like, okay, well, what is a shop owner? Like, my idea of a shop owner isn't what it was in 1950. I don't wear overalls and have a cigarette hanging out my mouth and a beer belly. And like you said about the guy interviewing with the phone on his shoulder and yelling to someone to help out the guy who walked through the front door. You know, I want to be a shop owner that has professional shop that's the top tier. Almost like when I started, when I cut my teeth at the dealership, I was able to see the polished floors and the bathrooms that were gleaming and the customers all put together, because that's the clientele base that you have. So that's what my growth goal was as a lot attendant. It was like one day I know I will be doing something like that. And in this capacity, I didn't know for sure, but I had a pretty clear picture at 18 years old that one day I will be, most likely running something of some sort. Now, I think that if you don't want to be the owner, okay, that's great. You don't want to, accept all of that responsibility, the good things and bad things that come with that, being tied to the business like that. Then a successful foreman is super respectful. I mean, and talk about like when you're in your tenured year 20 and 25, if you're a foreman who can kind of just mentor and raise the new guys coming in, show them the proper ways to fix cars, diagnose vehicles, that would be really exciting. That could go into teaching, university level. Man, Scanner Danner, he's one of my heroes, and I know he was a teacher, and that was something that I kind of like maybe thought about, but so that, yeah, it's limited. To kind of summarize that, it's a little bit limited on the path, but at the same point, it can kind of span out in different directions of what you wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Dean hit him on all of them. That's one of the questions I ask in any onboarding is there a pathway to ownership? Or what is the growth pathway? After, all the technicians I've talked to, pretty much all of the desires fall into three categories, and you have to hit those three categories. And that's what you should be looking at in a shop is, one, respect. Are you going to get respect? I mean, that's really important. Two is going to be growth. Do you have opportunities to grow in the direction that you want to grow? And three is money. You got to be competitive on the money. And I have this conversation a lot because I only work with independent shops. And usually what we're doing is we're talking to techs that are in dealers and we're bringing them over to independent shops. So that conversation always comes up. And I think what I've seen is the most progressive and really exciting idea for me is what Dean touched on. And that's, hey, look, when you get to the point where, your back is hurting and, you're not feeling like really, wrenching on cars as much, become that apprentice or that mentor for apprenticeships. And I think that's what a lot of the independent shops are figuring out. I mean, the dealers have figured this out. They've got these big time sponsorships with the Votech schools, and they're giving lots of money and automobiles and everything so that they can work on them because they want to bring those folks in. But a lot of the shops I work with, because I only work with independent shops, a lot of the shops I work with, they don't have apprenticeship opportunities. They tell me, look, Chris, we need someone that's experienced, someone that knows their way around a vehicle, someone that's not going to need to be babysat for, because we don't have anybody that can babysit them. So I think having somebody that's got that experience, I mean, gosh, somebody's got 20 or 30 years of experience, you don't want to see them walk out the door, Yeah. You know so much. And if you can set it up in a way that they can still come in and get paid and bring along another, and by the way, bringing in apprentices is what our industry needs. We need to be bringing in apprentices and giving them an opportunity. I'd love to see more independent shops doing that. I really would.
Yeah.
And outside sales. Outside sales.
Okay.
But a lot of technicians I talk to don't have that same. There's a different personality profile between a service advisor and a salesperson and a technician, for sure.
No kidding.
Some folks can make that transition, but I mean, not everybody can make that transition, and that's fine.
Do you want your car fixed? No? Okay, bye. Yeah.
Right.
That's the vibe. Yeah, so the apprenticeship thing, I'm giving this a trial run right now. We went to the college at the end of the spring semester. Guys are about to graduate. Guys and gals are about to graduate, and I said, "Hey, here's my company. It's a little different than a regular shop. You'll be doing some different stuff, but some pretty cool stuff. I'm looking for a summer intern, and you pay somebody for 3 months during the busiest time of year, which was, selfishly for me, hey, we could use a hand, but I'm not quite ready to hire another full-time employee right now. And it's a young kid, it's green, but also really sharp because he was at the top of the class.
Nice.
He's interested in the technology, and we're kind of going to see where it goes from there.
Nice.
And I mean, there's no reason that anybody listening to this, you probably have a local tech college. They probably have an advisory committee that is probably looking for members, and you can talk to them and say, hey, would I be able to come in here and just give a short presentation about a summer internship? And they're probably going to say yes. So it like doesn't cost you anything to try. And I don't know, it's working out great for us so far. I've been happy with it. I'll probably do it again next year. Yeah, starting them young, that's huge, and it takes time, and you got to be patient and play the long game there. It's like sports. Like they draft 18-year-old kids for a reason.
Yep.
And
Yep.
the 38-year-old players, they'll get 1-year contracts, right? And that's just the way it goes. But you build your own, and it really really pays dividends down the road. You just got to play that long game. But yeah, the career path to a mentorship within the business too, like it's really important to have a problem solver. And now maybe I'm slightly biased because that's what we do all day long, and the more problems we can solve, the better. But I think any shop, the reason I have a job is because any shop has problems that need to be solved, and we just get paid to do that for them. But if you had somebody there to, you've got those young kids in there trying to figure this stuff out, and you have a veteran player who can help guide them through solving some problems. Maybe he's not fixing the cars, he's not slamming engines and stuff like that, but he's solving problems. That's worth something. And so that role could potentially be something to aspire to. I don't know the details and the logistics of it, but I would think within a well-run shop that like that's a position that deserves to be there, and then again something to aspire to for somebody, because it's nice to have something like that. That's why I asked the question, is like career path. When I was a tech, as far as I was concerned, I was always going to be a tech, and that was going to be it. And I'll eventually retire from being a tech, and that'll be it. But it's nice to have a goal or a thing to aspire to. So yeah.
Yeah.
You got to have a position open for the young guys, and we always do. Right now, I have two younger guys that are both going to tech school. One's a couple years in, and the other one's just in his first year. But like they don't really cost you that much. Of course, a dollar is a dollar. That all goes to the bottom line. But you're kind of weeding through the youth today and treating them with respect, because I'll treat a general service tech or a lot kid the same way I would a senior tech, with respect. We all sit down on Friday, buy them all lunch, and we talk about our week. We talk about the weekend. We try to change the subject of just the day-to-day grind. And some of these younger guys, and I think the world doesn't give them enough credit. The new generation,
Sure.
whatever acronym they're using now, or XYZ, I'm not sure, but I don't think they're all bad. It's partially our fault for not allowing, that generation to show the benefits of a blue collar job, because not any job, whether it's a lawyer, a doctor, a mechanic, a pool cleaner, you can have the bottom rung of those guys, and you can have the top tier of those guys, and it's important to show them at a young age what it's like to have integrity, to have hustle, to have respect for coworkers. It's life lessons, and if you don't have that position open at your shop to have those guys come in and maybe go out every 3-4 months, like with the tide, then you're never going to catch any one of them. And it's not like what we are is like a lure or anything, a fishing net, but I think it's a benefit to grassroots grow that person from
Mm-hmm.
the get go, and where they don't have any bad habits, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think it's important to have that open for them.
Yeah, it's so true, and it's really true for longevity. I mean, I just talked to a shop owner about 3 weeks ago, almost probably a month ago, and he's got three techs, and they're all over 60. And I said, "What's your plan?" And he's like, "Yeah, I don't know what my plan is." And I mean, this would be a perfect opportunity to start bringing an apprentice in,
Mm-hmm.
and showing them the ropes. But we'll see. We'll see if he comes around.
Always be interviewing and always be stacking that file of potential, whether that's friends in the industry or potential, you know, employees. You always got to be open to
Yeah.
it, to a conversation.
We got a list. I told my guys, I'm like, hey, you see anybody out at the shops? They look maybe a little disgruntled, but they look like they know what they're doing. We'll put them on the list.
Yeah, Sean, you got like a leg up on us. You're going into all these shops. You can cherry pick this stuff.
I'm the equivalent to like a tool salesman. Like, can go shop to shop to shop. Oh, this guy's pissed off. Oh, he does not like his job, but he knows what he's doing. So, yeah, we got our eyes on a few.
The problem is if you end up hiring one of them, then you lose a client.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so that's what I thought, but I did that, and they still use us. So
Oh, well, hey,
it worked out.
best of both worlds. Good for you.
It was kind of like a mutual thing. He was done there, and he was going to leave either way, and so I was concerned about that, but it worked out for the best. So I could easily see it going the other way.
Yeah.
Mm. That's a good relationship.
Yeah. Was there any one of those other questions that you wanted to tackle?
Maybe just red flags. If we could give the listeners a little bit of guidance on what to look for when they're in an interview, or what to ask for when they're into an interview. We touched on that a little bit, but I think that might be valuable for them to have that info.
I mean, if I was a tech, I was going to a shop right now. One of the big questions I would have is training, and what's your general thoughts on it, obviously, but then what do you offer or support me with? How is that going to look like? Obviously, is there anything, but then like what events do you guys go to? Do you send your guys to events? What online training? What in-house training? Right? There's lots of different forms, and that's a whole nother conversation, but like, is it just you expect me to know all of this stuff? Even if it's like you just expect me to know it, or you expect me to train myself, that's two different things. But I would be looking for somewhere that is offering some type of training as part of the job. That's a big one for me if I was looking for a job as a tech right now.
Yep.
Yeah, the training aspect of it, I can remember as a young GM tech, they would send us to Burbank, which is about 100 miles north of us. They had a GM satellite location there for training, and man, I learned so much there, hands-on, and that was really valuable for me, especially as a young guy. And COVID ruined a lot of that for us with, the big. I know there's some conferences like Vision and whatnot, but everything just went to computer based, and my mind doesn't work that way. I can't look at a computer screen and really soak up anything. So I really wish the industry would step up and allow us to have courses, and we'll gladly pay for them. But it's hands on, and it's done by an instructor that cares, that doesn't show up hungover and not prepared. But training is huge. If you ask, you have to ask. Do you do training as a applicant going in? And if they say no, I expect you to know everything and just learn on the job, then hightail it out of there.
See ya.
Yeah, see ya. If the company is not willing to invest back into you thousands and thousands of dollars per trip out to whatever offsite location has that, then you shouldn't be there.
Or at the very least, they don't understand that it's not just, oh, I show up and I know everything about this. Like, they should have that clarity about the industry that they're in, that's not how this works. Like,
Yeah,
I have to get knowledge about this somehow. How is that going to happen?
sure. And it depends on what position you're going for. If you're going in for just an apprentice, you're not really expected to know much. But if
Right.
you're going in as a experienced guy and you need to, you're being paid to diagnose a car on your own, you should know Ohm's law and the internal workings of a motor. And but then at the same point, there's you know dozens and dozens of cars every year that are released that have brand new technology, and none of us see that. Even the dealer guys don't see it until it first comes to them. But they have the luxury of your field reps and your engineers coming out to save the day. We an independent don't have that luxury. We usually get the car 5 years down the road when it's been a little bit abused, things are kind of worn out.
Somebody's put like 3 used parts in it, and
totally. So there's all types of training. Even the most experienced guy can definitely benefit from training, and especially as talk about growth, like have your senior guy go take a sales or a managing or an ownership class. That will grow his mind way more than he ever thought was possible.
Yeah, that's actually a great one. I was talking to a shop owner that said that he had his technicians take a service advisor training. And he had 3 of his techs take a service advisor training, and he said it was eye-opener. I mean, they came back and they apologized to the service writers. They said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't realize all the stuff you had to go through. I thought your job was easy." And it was a really interesting revelation for them because they went through that training. I thought that was a great idea. But, in terms of questions, I would say a big question is ask them, why did your last tech leave? Kind of get a feel for that. One of the things that I always tell shop owners is when they're in interviews is I say, hey, ask a tech, tell me about your last boss or your last supervisor. And you understand a lot about somebody when you ask that question, because it shows you, for the tech, if you're a tech and you ask the owner, you say, hey, why did your last tech leave? And the owner says, well, he didn't do the things he was supposed to do or something like that. I mean, you can get a feel for what the management style is. If they say, oh, you know what, he had to go take care of his mom in another city or something like that, it's like, oh, okay, that doesn't really mean anything. But what you're really trying to drive at is you're trying to drive at the longevity. Is this a shop that kind of burns through employees? Is this a place where there's real longevity and people stay because they really enjoy being there? And what I also say is, you probably want to have a conversation with somebody that's there. If you can, try to go to lunch with them. What I tell a lot of the shops is I'll say, hey, look, try to get a working interview. I know it's hard to do. You've got to take a day off, but I said pay them for a day that they come in and they work, set up a job for them, and set up the tools that they're going to need, and then send them out to lunch. Pay for lunch and send them out to lunch with your techs and talk off-site. You're not in the shop, you're not in a work environment, just talk and see if you all get along. And that's a big part of it. These are people that you're going to be working with, and it would be nice to kind of know who you're working with and if you get along with the culture and with who they are. So those are the things that I would suggest.
Yeah. If you see people in the heat of battle, like that, like the real character starts to come through. Even if it's just a day, but I think that's a really good idea. If you can get out in the action with them and see the flow of the shop, you can get a good feel of like, how am I going to feel, day to day? This is going to be my life, as long as I'm employed here. Is this what I want to do?
Yeah, or if they blast country music all day and you like rock, or vice versa,
Taylor Swift, okay?
Yeah, there you go. They blast Taylor Swift in the bays all day long. Yeah, it can make your life, better. There is an amount of pay that's going to make up for that,
Yeah, listen to the music that's on in the back when you come in.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, these are things you got to think about, right?
That
The level of
that
the sound.
that is there is a huge variety depending on the shop that I go to. I
Yeah.
do find that really interesting. There's a couple places they have like the rave party jams going where it's like like, oh, these guys are cranking out some flat rate hours for sure.
Yeah. They fill the refrigerator with Red Bull.
Yeah, they're 4 monsters in by 9 a.m. So
There you go. Oh, you know what? If that's your thing, that's awesome. But it's better that you know going on, right? That's the
yeah.
whole thing. I mean, gosh, I read a statistic that there are 250,000 repair shops in the United States. I haven't verified that, but I just read that a couple days ago. And I mean, gosh, when you think about that, it's like there's a shop out there that you're going to resonate with. That's going to have the right culture, the right values, the right vision, the right career
Yeah.
path that you're going to, you're going to be able to resonate with, and you have options, right?
That's if I could say one thing to 18-year-old Sean entering this field is like, don't just settle for the first thing that you find that you feel safe at. Like, if it sucks for reasons A, B, and C, obviously, reflect on yourself to see, hey, what could I be doing differently. But like, go out and see what else is out there because there's going to be a better fit for you most likely. And I didn't know that when I was young. Now, granted, the resources weren't quite the same. There's no Facebook or YouTube or anything like that. But like, I was like, if I leave here, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a job, right? Like, I don't know if it's going to be worse if I go to the next place. But man, go check stuff out because there's a lot of different places out there, and you'll find the right fit. And I've seen techs go, because that's the other thing. Like doing the mobile, we see techs move from shop to shop to shop, and one tech who just seems like, oh man, he's not doing well here, and he goes to this other shop, or maybe even isn't one that I would prefer to work at, but he does really well in that setting. That's his vibe. He works well with that flow. Maybe it's low pressure. Maybe he just gets along with everybody. And I mean, how are you going to know unless you go check it out and see?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's with that? Those techs that are about every 2 years they're moving.
There's quite a few of those.
You talk the last 15 years, they've been at 7 shops. Like,
Yeah, there is that.
and
Yeah.
I just recently interviewed them, and it's like I asked them that point blank, like, hey, if I'm going to dissect this resume, I see you move about every 2 years. And some of them don't really have an answer. It's kind of like, well, I don't know, just kind of looking for something, or they're honest. They're like, hey, I'm always looking for better opportunity, more pay, more busy work, what have you. But also, I think it's you can kind of tell maybe a lack of commitment in some of the guys.
Sure.
And in that fact that you have to push through that wall sometimes to establish yourself at a shop, because 2 years isn't a long time. You might always be the new guy. And if you're leaving in 2 years, then it's probably 18 months, you're probably thinking about moving again. But if you try to push through that wall of, I need to dedicate myself to this shop, if it looks somewhat decent, for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then you'll see that it's not greener on the other side of the fence, first of all. And when you do become that common face to the customers, the owner, the service writers, the whatever, you're not the new guy anymore. Then opportunities start to open up a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty important.
That's so true. I've had that happen so many times. It's I'll get a phone call and they'll say, "Oh, I've just the dealer just offered my guy $3 more an hour, and he's going to go." And I always say, "Well, I'm sure you had the conversation that you need to have." And one of the things is sit down and show what full compensation looks like. A lot of the times the guys don't realize that they're actually getting more than the dealer is going to offer them if you take everything into consideration. I've had that happen so many times. It's just like, oh, the dealer's going to give me $2 more an hour. But it's just like, well, he didn't factor in the bonuses and all these other things. So that's the first thing. And the second thing I always say is, keep in touch, don't burn bridges, because I've heard this happen so many times. I've seen techs leave for a couple of dollars an hour because they want to go to a dealer, and then it doesn't pan out. For whatever reason, they don't get the raise. There's a bunch of hoops or a bunch of conditions or strings that are attached, and it just doesn't work out. And they end up wanting to come back. And that's why you just never burn the bridges. And it works both ways. You always want to keep an open mind about this. And the other thing is, I'm kind of in a unique position because we run, thousands of ads a year and, hundreds of ads a week. And I get to see the comments on our ads from technicians. And you can tell so much about somebody by comments they leave on an ad, on Facebook, and you just hear it. I mean, there's so many people that they're jaded, they're crusty, they're angry, and they hate the industry because of this or because of that or because they've been done wrong. And then there's other people that just say, you know what, I'm going to make my own destiny and I'm going to do what I can to be better at my craft. I'm passionate about this. I really want to make this, my life. And, those are the folks that end up really doing something special. And you can always tell, I've walked through dozens of shops and seen lots of teams working, and you can always tell the people that really get it and they really care and they want to be the best that they can possibly be. And you know what? Somebody like that is always going to land somewhere. They're always going to have some place to be, and they're always going to be wanted where they're at because they're bringing the light into the situation. And the folks that jump around, we see a lot of them too. And you know what? If somebody is jumping around a lot, there's something else going on there. Mm-hmm. And it's probably not even opportunity. Sometimes they just get antsy, folks get antsy, and they just don't want to be there. Sometimes they haven't decided what they want to do yet. And if there's one thing that I would say is, you know what, if you're going to decide you're going to be here, do the best you possibly can here. And if you decide you're not going to do that, then, make the change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been at two places in my whole career. This is the third. 7 years at a dealership and 15 years at an independent. So that should tell you kind of my mindset. It's like
you're an anomaly.
Yeah. Well, and I think the mindset around it has definitely shifted as the decades have progressed, right? You don't have the people working 40 years for a company very often anymore, like that in any industry. Like you just don't see that anymore. And I know a lot of people my age in different professions that use the job hopping because that's the way that they could get a raise.
Yeah.
And so I think it's almost built into the culture, if you will, of a lot of people. But then, okay, so I look at it as a business owner of like, okay, well, how can I make this something that you don't want to leave, right?
Exactly.
Obviously, they got to do their part. But on my side of things, like, what can I put in place that makes this the golden handcuffs, if you will?
Mm-hmm.
If I can set that up, and I by no means crack that formula, but I'm always thinking about that in the decisions that I make around the business and with the employees of what benefits can I offer? How can I create this as something that you want to be here? And then obviously both parties come together on that. Like you're not a job hopper. You're going to put in your best foot forward and the employer wants to make the best for you. Okay, cool. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just on a call this morning with a shop owner and he's having some issues with his GM and it's because of external things. GM is, he's fantastic inside the shop, but he's got so much stuff going on outside the shop that it's just coming in and it's just seeping through in everything he does. And I think it's really important to, like I said earlier on the call, it's you want to find a shop that is going to help you, that cares about your life inside and outside the shop. They're trying to remove obstacles for you inside the shop. They're trying to make it, give you a career path and growth opportunities. But by the same token, if you have things on the outside that you really want to accomplish, then those are some things that you can get help with as well. And, I've worked with shops that do things like, they have Dave Ramsey programs so that help you get your finances together. I've worked with shops where the owner actually lent money for down payments on houses for tacks and, done all kinds of things to make sure that things were pretty smooth on the outside and they were growing inside professionally and personally. So that's something that you might want to take a look at too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
the owners should take care of their guys, man, and that needs to be kind of reminded all the time. Whether it's something as simple as buying lunch for them or
Yep.
giving them a vehicle when they're down on their luck,
Yep.
co-signing on a loan. It gets a little tricky in some bigger numbers of things, but
Sure.
knowing that showing them that you have their back is important.
Very much.
That
Very
doesn't
much.
that doesn't take a lot of effort, really.
No, there's a lot of little things that you can do for sure that just show that, hey, I'm not against you. I'm not trying to take advantage of you. Like, we're in this together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And stock their Facebook page. You can tell a lot about a shop by their Facebook page.
Okay.
I'll have to clean mine up a little bit.
Well, you probably do say the same thing about the technician too. Probably.
We've disqualified techs because of their Facebook page. I'm sorry to say, it's be careful, guys, about what you post on your page. Shop owners, shop admins, GMs. That's one of the first things they'll do is they'll stalk you on your social media profiles and make sure you don't have anything that's questionable on there. I was talking with my friend the other day. I said, "Oh my God, can you imagine if they'd had Facebook and YouTube when we were kids?" Oh man, I would have never had any jobs.
We lucked out.
Well, we did. We did luck out, but you have to be really careful. Really careful.
Yep. Well, cool, guys. Thank you both for spending the time with me this evening. I really appreciate it. Dean, it was really nice to meet you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely,
Chris?
Sean. Man, I'll tell you what, I've in about the last 6 months, I think I've listened to just about every one of your podcasts, man. And
oh man, that's a lot of Sean. I apologize.
No, I remember I was flying to Hawaii. So it was about a year ago then.
Okay.
And I was searching for something to listen to on the airplane, and I was like, man, I was trying to at the time figure out a vehicle, and I wasn't looking for a specific guide or help on that car, but I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try to find some diagnostics in a podcast. So in the search bar, it's like auto diagnostics, and then your deal popped up, and I'm like, I'll give this a shot. I think I finished 4 episodes on that flight, but I congratulate you on what you've been doing with this, because it really gives some content to the industry and what like our struggles with, especially nowadays with the cars and how sophisticated the technology is. Man, it's these people are driving around in $100,000 computers and they don't know that, and they're blindsided when the cost of these repairs are just astronomical. $20,000 repair on a diesel engine or electronics is not out of the normal. These days. So and you really bring a lot of light to that. Excuse me. So appreciate you and keep doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you listening and reaching out. I'm glad I can share some stuff and people enjoy it. I picked the name because I don't remember what it was. I was looking for some hockey podcast and it was some stupid name that had nothing to do with hockey. I'm like, just help me out here for the search. How else am I going to find it? So I made mine. I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to name it exactly what people are searching for. And so that worked. Good.
Brilliant.
How many listeners are you up to? Do you have any way of gauging that?
The specific listeners I don't. I can see the downloads per week. I don't track it too closely, to be totally honest. But there's like a running total at the bottom of the page, and I glance at it every once in a while, and I'm very close to 1 million, which is pretty cool. That one I was like, I'll probably.
That's very cool.
crack a beer to that for sure when I hit that. So
Oh,
we're close, probably
congratulations.
within the year. So,
Nice. That's very
yeah,
cool, man.
yeah.
That's
Podcast
fantastic.
numbers are different than YouTube numbers. I think you can get that on YouTube quite a bit easier, but the podcast downloads it's a different realm. So
Yeah, and YouTube, you got the visual part of it.
yes,
You know,
yeah.
I haven't seen one of your Facebook videos. I think you do something there.
Well, so we have a YouTube channel for the show
YouTube, okay.
too. They don't all have videos. Some of it's just audio, but we put it there because that's some people's preferred method of listening. But then, like this one, there'll be the video that'll be on YouTube. So some people prefer it that way. And to be honest, I have my assistant run the YouTube page. I have no idea what our numbers are, so you guys can tell me on there. But yeah, what I do it for is I'll have feedback from people like you and other people that reach out, and as long as like that keeps coming in, I'm gonna keep doing this because it's helping people out. So if that's one person, changing the trajectory of their career, fuck yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
I will continue to do this. So 1 million downloads is cool, but it doesn't do anything for me. So if I can help people
in contact with each other, and then that's helped grow both of our businesses. So
Definitely.
yeah,
Definitely.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
And I definitely, as always, will promote your podcast to my network, and let's get you over that 1 million mark. I love that.
Well,
That's awesome.
Same here. And you want to give a plug for your services too, in case anybody hasn't heard you on here before?
Yeah, I own a business called Technician Find, and we only work with independent shops. We help find technicians, service advisors, every position that you might need within a shop. And every time I come on your podcast, Sean, I get a bunch of your listeners that email me, reach out, and say, "Hey, do you know of a good shop that will take care of me?" And I absolutely do. So if you want to send me an email at chris@technicianfind.com, I'm happy to connect you if we're working with a shop in your area. I'm happy to make a connection for you and make sure that you find a home that somebody's going to take care of you.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'll throw the link in the show notes too. So
Awesome.
people can find that as well. So
and if anyone's down in San Diego, if they're looking for an honest shop to get their car fixed at, Sharpe Automotive in San Diego.
There you go.
Tommy down our way. I'll take him out and tour the carne asada tacos we have down here. I'm sure.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
he'll probably say they're garbage. So don't.
I'm sure there'll be a conference in San Diego soon.
Yeah.
Well,
Awesome.
thank you, gentlemen.
Keep up the good work, Sean.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. One more big thank you to Dean and Chris for joining me on the show. Once again, if you're interested in finding out about Technician Find and the services that Chris provides, check out the link in the show note. I highly recommend it if you're looking for technicians. Chris is a great guy, and he'll provide some excellent results. But other than that, I just want to appreciate everybody out there for listening and the feedback that we get about the show. Dean is a listener of the show, and that's how he ended up reaching out to me and getting on the show. So if you've got something to share, you'd like to be on the show to talk about, your business, your perspective of the automotive world, or even just a cool case study, reach out and we'll see what we can do to get you on. But with that all of the way, let's get out there, start fixing the world one car at a time. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. One more big thank you to Dean and Chris for joining me on the show. Once again, if you're interested in finding out about Technician Find and the services that Chris provides, check out the link in the show note. I highly recommend it if you're looking for technicians. Chris is a great guy, and he'll provide some excellent results. But other than that, I just want to appreciate everybody out there for listening and the feedback that we get about the show. Dean is a listener of the show, and that's how he ended up reaching out to me and getting on the show. So if you've got something to share,
you'd like to be on the show to talk about, your business, your perspective of the automotive world, or even just a cool case study, reach out and we'll see what we can do to get you on. But with that all of the way, let's get out there, start fixing the world one car at a time.
Yeah.